My stepmom demanded rent for my childhood room, so I took it back and made her leave. She says it like she's asking me to pass the salt. So, from next month, it'll be $350 a week for your room, Karen announces, snapping the lid back onto the margarine tub like that's the end of the conversation. We're at the same kitchen table I did my primary school homework on, the same table where my dad used to fall asleep over the newspaper. And suddenly I feel like the legs might snap. My fork is halfway to my mouth, peas cooling on the metal. For a second, I actually think I've misheard her. The fridge hums, the old clock ticks too loudly on the wall, and my own pulse drum beats in my ears. Sorry, what? I ask carefully, like maybe this is some joke I missed the setup to. Karen doesn't look up from the stack of envelopes she's sorting through. She just flicks her eyes at me over the top of her readers. Rent, Tessa. You're working now. Adults pay to live in a house. I'm not running a charity. It was a Wednesday night in late winter, the kind where the air outside the back door is sharp enough to sting your lungs, and you can see your breath when you take the rubbish out. I'd finished a long shift at the physio clinic, come home still smelling faintly of deep heat and hand soap, and found Karen already halfway through a jar of salsa and a bottle of cheap Sauv Blanc. The house was too quiet in the way it had been since my dad died 6 months earlier. No sports commentary on the TV. No off-key humming from the bathroom when he brushed his teeth. Just the clink of Karen's spoon and the clock. Moving back into my childhood room after Dad's funeral hadn't been some grand plan. It was a scramble. I'd been sharing a tiny rental with 2 other girls while I finished my degree. When Dad got sick, I was taking the train back and forth, juggling assignments and overnight hospital stays. After he passed, my lease was up, my savings were chewed through, and Karen and I had sat in the same kitchen, both of us hollow-eyed, and she'd said, "Just come home. It's your house too. We'll figure it out together." It had sounded like kindness at the time. Dad married Karen when I was 14. He met her at the hardware store, allegedly over an argument about which drill bit was best. She moved in fast her clothes in the wardrobe before I'd even memorized how she took her coffee. My mom had left when I was 9, and she'd always been this vague, blurry shape at the edge of my life. Postcards instead of visits, Facebook likes instead of phone calls. So when Karen arrived with her bright laugh and her scented candles and her bossy affection, I didn't know what to do with her. She wasn't wicked stepmother evil. No locking me in attics or making me scrub floors. She bought my school formal dress when Dad was between contracts. She taught me how to make gravy from scratch, standing behind me, guiding my hand on the wooden spoon. But there was always an edge. Little digs about how, "Your mother should have taught you this." Comments about how I was just like your father whenever I left a mug in the sink or questioned something. When Dad got sick, stomach cancer that went from "we caught it early" to "we've done all we can" in what felt like 10 minutes. Karen went into logistical overdrive. She organized appointments, argued with doctors, made spreadsheets of medications. She also quietly started changing things. Joint accounts into her name, for ease. Dad's phone contract canceled because it was too painful. Papers moved from the file cabinet into boxes I wasn't allowed to touch. In those last weeks, he and I had one clear conversation about the house. Just one. He'd been propped up on pillows, the pale blue ones with the faded anchors, his hand dry and warm in mine. The television was on mute in the corner, casting silent light across his face. "You know the house is yours," he rasped, voice frayed around the edges. "I changed the will after Karen moved in. She knows. She'll be looked after, but this place, it's for you." "Dad, can we not?" "I need you to hear me," he insisted, squeezing my fingers surprisingly hard. "It's in writing. My solicitor, Andrew, has it. Karen gets some super and some savings, but the title goes to you when I cark it." He tried to smile at his own bluntness. "I want you to have the option. Sell it, live in it, rent it out. Just don't let anyone tell you it doesn't belong to you, all right?" I'd nodded, crying too hard to speak. It hadn't occurred to me that anyone would argue. After he died, everything blurred. People brought casseroles. The house filled with relatives I hadn't seen in years, all of them smelling like perfume and grief. Karen clung to me in front of the coffin and sobbed into my shoulder. When the lawyer's letter came, she opened it, told me he'd left us both enough to be comfortable, and that we'd go through the boring details later. I was too wrecked to push. $350? I repeat now, back at the kitchen table, stomach doing slow flips. A week? For my room? Karen sighs like I'm being deliberately obtuse. It's not even market rate. she says. You'd pay more than that in a share house for a box with no wardrobe. You've had a free ride for months. Electricity isn't cheap. Groceries aren't cheap. If you want to be treated like an adult, you contribute like one. I put my fork down. The peas roll off, skittering across the plate. Karen, I buy my own food, I say, and half the toilet paper. And I pay the Wi-Fi bill. The only thing I don't pay is a third of your Netflix, which, if you'd like, I'm happy to cancel my profile. The corner of her mouth twitches. This is not a negotiation, she says. This is me setting boundaries. You can afford it. You have a job. I'm the one on a widow's pension. She drops the word like a trump card. I rub my thumb along a groove in the table's edge. My dad sanded that groove himself after an accident with a hot pan. I'm not saying you don't have it tough, I say. I know the bills are. A lot. But this isn't just your house. It's Dad's house. Was, she snaps, quick as a whip. Past tense. He left it to both of us, which means it's my house now. And in my house, grown people pay their way. Something in my chest goes very still. He told me he left it to me, I say, the words quiet but solid. Before he died. He said you'd be looked after, but the title was going to me. Karen laughs, really laughs. A sharp, incredulous sound that echoes off the tiles. You were always his little princess, she says. He told you whatever you wanted to hear. The will is done, Tessa. I've seen it. I was there when he signed it. Then show me, I say. Show me the will. Her eyes flicker, just for a second. I don't have to prove anything to you, she says. If you don't like my terms, you can find somewhere else to live. I'm sure you and your friends can afford some little unit if you stop buying those overpriced lattes. I feel the world tilt. It's not about the $350. I could make it work. Tighten my budget. Pick up extra shifts. It's about the fact that she's standing in my father's kitchen telling me I'm a tenant in a house he told me was mine. Okay, I say slowly. Okay, I'll think about it. She smirks, misreading that as surrender. Good girl, she says. Like I'm a dog she's just trained. I excuse myself, go to my room, and shut the door. For a long time, I just stand with my back against it, palms flat, breathing too fast. The walls are still painted the same pale blue I picked when I was 12. There's a faint shadow where my trophy shelf used to be. Dad's tool belt hangs on a hook in the wardrobe, right where he left it. I dig through my desk drawer for the business card I shoved there months ago. The one with Andrew Collins, solicitor, embossed in tiny letters. He'd pressed it into my hand at the wake and said, "If you ever want to go through anything, give me a ring." In that gentle, formal way lawyers have when they're trying not to intrude. My fingers hover over my phone screen for a full minute. Calling feels like betrayal, like I'm dragging Dad's ghost into a tug-of-war. But staying in this limbo, letting Karen rewrite reality around me, feels worse. I dial. Andrew remembers me. I was actually wondering when you'd reach out, he says, which is both reassuring and vaguely alarming. We make an appointment for the next afternoon. He tells me to come alone. It's easier to talk frankly that way, he says. Karen assumes I'm going to a shift. She barely looks up when I say, I'm heading out. Just flicks her eyes at the clock and says, don't be late on rent day, like she's rehearsing. Andrew's office smells like coffee and paper. There's a plant in the corner that's either thriving or very determined. He offers me tea. I accept so my hands have something to do. I'll be blunt, he says once we're settled. Your father made his wishes very clear. I have a copy of the will here. He taps a folder on the desk. Karen has the original, or she should, but that's not strictly necessary for us to talk about what it says. I brace myself. He left a lump sum to Karen. Andrew continues. A decent one, plus his superannuation and a small life insurance policy. He also specified she could remain in the house for 6 months after his death, rent-free, to give her time to make arrangements. He looks up at me over his glasses. After that, the property passes to you, outright. My ears ring. 6 months, I repeat. He died. Almost 7 months ago. Andrew nods. I'm aware. I sent Karen a letter at the 5-month mark, gently reminding her of the timeline and suggesting we discuss next steps. I did not receive a response. I laugh, a harsh little sound. She told me the will left the house to both of us. That is categorically untrue, he says, and there's steel under the soft tone now. If she is misrepresenting this to you, that is a concern. The tea in my hands has gone cold. So legally, I say slowly, I own the house? Yes, he says. Legally, you've owned it for almost a month. I sit very still, letting that settle. In my mind, the house has always been Dad's. Even now, I sometimes catch myself thinking, I'll ask him where the spare drill bits are, before remembering that I can't. The idea that it's mine-like, actually mine, not just because my name is on old-school photos taken in the front yard, is disorienting. What happens if she refuses to leave? I ask, voice small. He sighs. Then we follow a process, he says. We send a formal letter explaining the situation and giving her a reasonable time frame. If she digs her heels in, there are legal avenues. I won't lie to you, Tessa. It can get messy. But you are within your rights to assert your ownership. Your father was very clear about that. He didn't want you pushed out. I look down at my chipped nail polish. He told me that, I say. I thought grief had made me misremember. Andrew's expression softens. You didn't misremember, he says. He was adamant. He said, my daughter deserves security. She's worked hard. I want her to have a foundation. The tears prick fast and hot. I blink them away. Okay, I say. Let's send the letter. The next week is a study in tension. Andrew drafts the letter, emails me a copy, then posts the formal one to the house. I watch Karen bring in the mail like a spy movie. She flicks through the pile, sees the law firm logo, and her lips go bloodless. She doesn't open it straight away. It sits on the counter all afternoon, a white rectangle of threat. I pretend not to notice. My heart, however, is having a small seizure. She finally slits it open after dinner, glass of wine in hand. Her eyes scan the page. Her face goes a mottled red I've only seen once before, when Dad told her he wasn't co-signing on a personal loan for her sister. Tessa, she calls, voice sharp. I walk in, deliberately calm. Yeah? She slaps the letter down on the table between us. What is this? I glance at it like I haven't memorized every line. Looks like a letter from Andrew, I say. Dad's solicitor. Don't play dumb, she snaps. This says the house is yours, that I'm, permitted to occupy the premises for a period not exceeding 6 months from the date of death, and that period has expired. She jabs a finger at the date. He's telling me I have to vacate my own home. I take a breath. It's not your home, Karen, I say, as gently as I can manage. It was Dad's. Now it's mine. He left you money. He made sure you'd be okay. He also made sure I'd have somewhere to live. You knew that. I knew nothing of the sort, she says, but there's something wild in her eyes. He told me. He told me we'd be all right. He said this would be our house. I'm sure he meant emotionally, I say, but legally he was specific. He didn't want us fighting over it. That's why he did it this way. She laughs, but it's a cracked sound. Oh, that's rich. You got to be his golden girl even in death? Of course he left it to you. Why would the woman who kept him alive for 3 years get anything as solid as bricks and mortar when his precious daughter might want a crash pad? Guilt punches me in the gut. Irrational and heavy. He left you money, I say. Enough to put a deposit on a unit. Or pay rent for years. You are not being thrown onto the street. But you can't stay here forever and treat me like a tenant. My name is on the bills, she says. My blood and sweat are in these walls. I painted that hallway. And Dad's is in the foundations, I say, heat rising in my face. He built the deck. He tiled the bathroom. He worked night shifts to pay the mortgage. I did my homework at this table while he fell asleep over tax forms. You came in halfway through the story. That doesn't make you the author. Her hand shakes as she picks up her wine. So what, you're evicting me? I'm enforcing what Dad set out, I say. I don't want this to be ugly. Andrew suggested we give you a couple of months to find a place, even though legally you've had that already. I can help with the bond. We can make a plan. But yeah, ultimately you'll need to move out. For a moment, I think she might throw the glass. Instead, she drains it in one go, slams it down, and says, You're unbelievable. The next few weeks are awful. There's no cinematic montage where we come to a mutual understanding over cardboard boxes. Karen swings between icy silence and bitter monologues about loyalty. She takes calls in her room with the door open, loudly recounting to her sister how I'm kicking a grieving widow out on the street. She starts labeling food in the fridge with her initials, as if I might suddenly start eating her yogurt out of spite. I don't back down. I also don't become a monster. I extend the deadline Andrew suggested. I print out rental listings and leave them on the counter, circle ones I think would suit her. I transfer her a chunk of my savings with "for bond plus moving" in the description, even though it stings to watch the number in my account drop. The day she finally leaves, the house looks like a mouth that's had a tooth pulled. There are gaps where her furniture was, rectangles of unfaded paint, a faint outline of where her ugly "live, laugh, love" canvas once hung. The removalists load the last box. She stands in the doorway, keys in her hand, looking smaller than I've ever seen her. "Don't expect me to forgive you for this," she says. "I'm not asking you to," I reply. "I do hope you land somewhere good." She snorts. "You and your father," she says. "Always so sure you know what's best." She drops the house keys on the hall table. They clink, loud in the empty space. Then she's gone. For a long time after the door shuts, I just stand there, listening to the unfamiliar quiet. No soap opera blaring from the lounge. No clatter of her bracelets in the kitchen. Just my own breathing and the distant rumble of traffic. The first night alone in the house, I sleep badly. Every creak sounds like accusation. I keep seeing her face in the doorway, tight with resentment. I keep hearing my own words, and Dad's, and Andrew's. "You're within your rights. He wanted you to have this. I'm not running a charity." It's all tangled. There is no clean triumph here. But in the morning, I make coffee in a kitchen that doesn't feel like enemy territory. I sit at the table, open my laptop, and start making a list. Repairs the house needs, changes I want to make, things of Dad's I want to keep, and things I'm ready to let go. The sun comes through the window in a way I've never noticed, hitting the spot on the floor where I used to sit with the dog. It feels like the house is exhaling. I repaint the hallway. I take down the framed wedding photo of Dad and Karen, store it in a box, because whatever else, that was a part of his life. I hang up one of his old landscape photographs instead. I invite friends over without worrying about walking on eggshells. I dance in the lounge room to music that isn't Karen's 70s playlist. People who hear the story friends, coworkers, the occasional distant cousin tend to fall into two camps. Half say, "Good for you, it's what your dad wanted." The other half say, "Wow, I could never do that. I'd feel too guilty." The truth is, both things are true in me at once. I did what I had to do to stop being treated like a guest in the only stable home I've ever had. And I also carry a knot of guilt under my ribs that might never fully dissolve. But every time I think maybe I was too harsh, I remember Karen sitting at this table, looking me dead in the eye and telling me to pay rent for my childhood room like I was some random boarder. I remember Dad's hand squeezing mine, his voice rasping, "Don't let anyone tell you it doesn't belong to you." So yeah, my stepmom demanded rent for my childhood room. Instead of just paying up and shrinking myself to fit her version of fair, I asked questions. I read the will. I pushed back. I took the house back. Not as some cartoon villain throwing an old woman into the snow, but as a daughter honoring what her father put in writing. I made Karen leave, and in doing that, I finally got to come home.